It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
G'day everyone, welcome to episode 42 of the Trademate Sports Betting Podcast, a preview of the Champions League and Europa League final, and also the return of Ligue 1, and also the upcoming UFC card, the big bout, between Frankie Edgar and Pedro Munhoz. Firstly, I'll introduce our card betting expert and stats man, George Gamble. Mate, first of all, how are you? You must be struggling considering the early exit of Manchester City.
I am, yeah. If anything, it's not the fact that we went out, it's the manner in which we went out. I mean, I'll go into a bit more detail about it if you like. I'm not sure if you want to introduce Harout. But as well, yeah, it's been a frustrating week for me personally. but yeah, I can either go into more detail about that now if you like, or do you want me to wait? Yeah,
I'd love to hear your emotions around the Man City exit, mate.
Oh, well, as I said, it's not the fact we went out. I think it's the manner in which we went out. Obviously, Pep Guardiola, absolute genius. Love the man. But if anything, I think his genius has been his downfall in the Champions League, because the man overthinks everything. He just thinks far too much. Like, we're playing arguably, what was the weakest team left in the competition at that point. And bear in mind, we just come off outclassing and playing Real Madrid off the field over two legs. They're the team that's obviously won it quite, I think it was 3 times on the spin, not in the last few years. And you're playing Lyon, and you just changed the entire way that we play. We've gone against everything that's got us to this point in the first place. There was rumours sort of close to the camp that even the players like, why are we playing this new system? We've been playing this system for how long? We're so used to playing this way. This is what our strength is, and now we're playing like this. With the 3 centre halves at the back as well. In our midfield, not looking very agile. You've got the likes of obviously Gundogan, Rodri in there as well, and Fernandinho, very defensive-minded players. And then you've got KDB out on the wing. KDB flourishes, as everyone knows, in that middle, running towards the opposition goal with players and runners ahead of him and being able to feed them in, and didn't really have that at all. Despite that, we still largely dominated the game. We had, I think I saw the statistics, we had 4 big chances, didn't score any. Lyon had 3 chances pretty much the whole game and scored every single one of them. And then you see them again last night when they have a fair few big chances against Bayern and don't take a single one. It's almost like typical City strikes again, really. But it was frustrating. I think everyone, as soon as we saw the team sheet, we knew we were in for a tough night and it was going to be a lot more difficult than it perhaps should have been. But no, if anything, I think Pep will learn from that. He'll stay for no matter what. I think personally he's probably going to extend for maybe a year, 2. But still, I think next year, I think he'll learn a lot from that, because despite going out of the quarterfinals, for the last however many seasons on the bounce, this is the defeat that's come under most scrutiny. This is one that he's had the most difficult time dealing with. This has been the most sort of one covered in the media. And quite rightly so. We've taken a lot of banter from obviously a lot of the other fans too. So I think he'll learn from that. I think we'll learn from that a lot. So I'm hoping next season, if we obviously get to that stage, I'm sure we will, but we can't presume that he'll play with the same team that everyone knows, that makes us so good. Because, for example, can you imagine a Bayern Munich changing the way they play, changing their team purely for Lyon? No, yeah. They'll go out there with that arrogance and know exactly how good they are, that if they're at their best, they'll overcome Lyon, which they proved and which they did. So, as I said, it's not the fact we went out, it's the manner in which we went out, which really infuriates me.
Yeah, I guess Pep Guardiola just struggles with that calm mind of Mikel Arteta next to him. Interesting to look at both their seasons. At both Arsenal and Man City seasons. That you could almost say that Arsenal had a better season than Manchester City.
It depends which one you value more, if it's the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, really, mate. But
I'm fucking with you, mate. But yeah, no, you would have to say that it's basically been a failure of a season for Manchester City now. Although you did get the Carabao Cup, the way you performed in both enough. Champions League and EPL is not, I would say, well below par. But yeah, also joining us and listening in very keenly, Pro Sports Bettor out of Vegas, Harout Massoyan. How you going, mate?
Good, man. Just listening along to your guys' story.
Yeah, sorry to keep you waiting, mate. I wanted to ask you before we get into it, any more big bets in the past UFC card?
We actually had a few. Surprisingly, like the Contender Series, the Dana White Contender Series that goes on Tuesdays, has been really good. Like we get a lot of like sharp action there, and the markets are kind of easy to read. So I just would like to share with the viewers to also keep an eye out on that. If you have sports books that are offering odds on there, we typically see a lot of movements there, and they're probably a lot sharper, or I wouldn't say sharper, but they do get a lot more price corrections because of the lack of information or data on there. So if someone really knows the fighter, the market's a lot smaller. You can really find bigger inefficiencies. The Contender Series been pretty good, but the past weekend had a pretty decent position on Stipe. The market was just really liquid and was able to trade back and forth, so had a decent position on Stipe for like 2.4. That was the highlight of that card, but we're going to be carrying on. We have another great card coming up this weekend, so we'll go over a few of the fights in that card and see where we can find some value.
Yeah, it was a fascinating betting race between Cormier and Stipe. They traded, favorability, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Right up until the fight started. And I think Stipe ended up being the favourite in the end. But it was very, very interesting. Fellas, football quiz question of the week. Which player holds the record for most assists in a single Champions League season? I'll give you a few options once again. Don't read into the order too much. James Milner, Iniesta, Toni Kroos, or Douglas Costa. So I reckon I'll get you guys on this one.
Now we got to come out with a basketball quiz question on the next one. You guys are putting me at a disadvantage against George every week. It's not fair.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to be fair, I've got an absolute belting question for you that Harout you might sort of get. It's a fair one, the way I see it, and I'm not giving you any options though. So it's an even playing field.
All right, go. What's your quiz question then, mate?
Yeah, go for it.
We'll go with mine. So who was the last goalkeeper to keep a clean sheet against Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League?
Okay.
Nah, forget it. I quit.
I thought you were about to give him a basketball question, mate.
I like basketball, but my knowledge of it is not great enough in terms of statistics to be able to go way back when. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So you'll have me on the basketball.
Happy to hand over the reins, fellas, at any time. Considering my quizmaster ability, it's pretty poor. So anyone that wants to throw one out any week, you can go for it. But I would like to just... Sorry?
I'll say if you like, if you go and get it, I'll give the answer at the same time you give us the answer to your one.
Yeah, I'll be stewing over all podcasts, mate, so hold it in for me. Fellas, before we get started, I thought I'd just make a few admin announcements and just explain to everyone that we're actually going to make this a weekly thing from now on. We've had some good traction and interaction, so we thought we might as well make it a regular Thursday thing. So expect this podcast from both Harout and George every Thursday. I guess going forward, it'll more be focused on the EPL. And maybe a bit of Champions League if it fits in with the time schedule. Probably not, because they're normally played on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. But so we'll make this based around the EPL, and I guess maybe we could throw in a few UFC fights here and there, because that seems to be very popular too. I thought I'd just let everyone know to expect this to come out every Thursday. It's been great so far having you guys on, so hope you guys all enjoy that. And I also have an announcement at the end of the podcast, a very important announcement for US sports bettors who are looking to use Trademate in the future. So hold on to that one till the end. But I'll kick things off, fellas. Europa League final, Sevilla versus Inter. Thank God there's no Manchester United in there. Couldn't be happier with that. Thank you, Sevilla. You are absolute legends. Odds for this one, 3.58 Sevilla, draw 3.54 and 2.27 for Inter. They're the best odds I could find on those sides. Inter probably the better side coming in, but Sevilla are the Europa League kings winning in 06, 07, and they won 14, 15 and 16 under the legendary Unai Emery. So there you go. George, anything interesting here stats-wise or in the card markets?
Yeah, good evening. So obviously after looking at it, referee is McKelly, so he'll be taking this one. And he's only had one UEFA Europa League game this season, and that was Leverkusen against Rangers, and he showed a massive 5 in that one. And it's also worth noting that 4 of the last 5 Europa League finals have seen each team pick up 2 cards, and obviously, as we know, Sevilla have featured in those a fair few times, which is obviously good to know. As well as that, 3 out of the last 5 have seen both teams score. But just looking at these two, the stats for their goals is just ridiculous in terms of scoring and winning games. But Inter have won 8 of their last 10 in the Europa League, and Sevilla are undefeated in 15 of their last 16 matches as Europa League matches as well. So they're both strong sides, and Sevilla have obviously got that know-how of how to win this. They've beaten the likes of obviously Liverpool in previous seasons to win this trophy as well. I'm not surprised that Inter the favourites. I'm surprised at the distance apart that those odds are, though, considering Sevilla's pedigree in this competition. And obviously, Inter Milan have looked ridiculously strong. They have, but I just don't think you can write Sevilla off. So that's why I'm surprised about those odds. But looking at this one, I'd definitely be wanting to go on each team 20 plus booking points, considering how often it's landed in the last 5. In 80% of the last 5 finals, that's landed. So I'd definitely be looking at that. And I'd also be wanting to look at over 2.5 because these two, their firepower is just insane. Lukaku is on top form. Lautaro Martinez has shown that he's got, that knack in front of goal as well. But then Sevilla, great in this competition. Surprised Man United, held on for quite a while against United. Were lucky not to concede, but their defending was great. And then obviously picked United off at the other end. So I know you can say it's a final, but considering the last few finals as well, over 2.5 has landed, I think, from 4 out of the last 5 as well. So it might be 3 out of the last 5, but still, with these two, goals are going to go in. I think defensively, Sevilla are probably more sound than Inter Milan. But yeah, this has got everything for a great game. So for my bet for this one would be over 2.5 and each team 20 plus booking points. I'm not sure what the odds are yet because the card markets haven't been released over here from what I can see. So, but for an over 2.5 and each team 20 plus, I'll be looking at around, in English markets, around 6-4, 6-7-4 is what I'd be looking at personally, and that's probably what I'd want to take. I wouldn't take anything less than probably. I'd want well over even, so about 6-5 would be the minimum for that, given how often that's landed. I'd be wanting at least probably about 6-5 minimum for that, but I'm hoping it'll open up at around 6-7-4.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you said about Sevilla and their record in the Europa League and how you're surprised with the disparity in odds. Do you think that's a valuable statistic to look at if a team's been successful in a competition? You could look at this game right now and say Inter's probably the better side, but I'm going to bring the odds down on Sevilla just because they've been good at the Europa League before. Do you think that's something valuable to look at?
I wouldn't say necessarily just that because, a lot of things change. Players leave, managers leave, new people come in. So I don't think purely just based on pedigree, you can go with that. Real Madrid and Barca have both been excellent in the Champions League in previous years gone by. They failed miserably this season. But I think the reason it does make me surprised is that Sevilla, they've been great in this competition. But, last round, everyone was pretty much talking about United being in the final already and, who they were going to play, this, that and the other. And Sevilla caused a massive upset. They had to work for it, but nevertheless, they got the job done. They knew what they needed to do against United. They nullified their attack, got the job done at the end. So they've still got that know-how in the Europa League. So, and with Inter Milan, I think United are probably more defensively sound than Inter Milan, if I'm honest. I know they can they do obviously concede a fair few goals themselves. They're so intent on going forward and they blitz you at times. But I just think, again, Sevilla's know-how in terms of what they did in the last round, what they've done leading up to this, they know what they need to do to win. They know how they have to play against opponents and they know what they need to do. So don't get me wrong, I think Inter are favourites because of their firepower, because of Lukaku and Lautaro Martinez, simply because of that. I was just surprised how long the odds were on Sevilla to win. I think they should be a little bit shorter, but I do feel Inter are probably the stronger side, definitely. I think there might have been a slightly underestimating Sevilla's chances here.
Okay, what do you think, Harout? Do you think it's worth looking back at, say, Sevilla's past performances in Europa League?
I mean, yes and no. No, mostly because a lot of things change. Teams are, changing. What was their team 2-3 years ago is different than what they are now. And there's just a lot more variables in play that are always going to, cause fluctuations on what the true probabilities of a match should be. So I think what's in the past is in the past. However, one thing that's important for me, and I think that other sharp bettors should, take into account is how is the market, how is the money coming in the market for these teams? How are they betting in the past few games? What have we been seeing? Are they hitting the totals on the overs? Are they hitting on the unders on specific teams? These are relevant things to look at because history does kind of tend to repeat itself to some degree when certain totals or sides are being played and money's coming on those sides. Generally, more often than not, we do tend to see it keep going that way, and I'm going to specifically make reference to Inter Milan. It's very rare to see the unders get hit on their games. Whenever there's like sharp money pouring in, it's usually to correct inefficiencies on the under being overpriced. So I've seen a lot of, even on the Serie A games when they were in the season, a lot of Inter Milan overs were getting hit and they were cashing at a high frequency. So, I mean, to me, that's something that I'm going to be looking at in this match because based on looking at the odds, there is already a bit of movement on the overs. The under opened at around 1.8, and we are seeing it, or 1.8, 1.83, depending on which book you're looking at, but it's already starting to trend towards 1.87, 1.9 some places. So I think that's important to consider. I'd be keeping my eye on the overs on this match.
Okay, so you're saying that you're agreeing with George in this, that you're expecting, from looking at the markets also, you're getting confirmation that it looks like the overs or over 2.5 is being favoured at the moment.
Yeah, my analysis is, as you know, is obviously more on what I'm seeing happen in the market. George obviously knows more than I do about the stats and how certain players play. But based on reading the market, it is congruent with what George is saying. They do like the overs in this match. I can already see it early on in the movement.
Okay, would you have any kind of idea of I can't remember what price you just said it's at now, maybe 1.87 you said. Do you want to have a guess as to what price you think it could get down to?
I wouldn't be completely shocked if we see the over 2.5 hang out at around 1.83, have it flip-flopped.
Okay, cool, great insight, mate.
Based on where I'm gauging, that's where I think it could go.
Yeah, cool, guys. So that's on Friday night, and then the Champions League final is not till Sunday night. As it was confirmed last night, PSG will be playing Bayern Munich. Cracking final there. Both teams, it's been a while since they've won the Champions League, so they'll both be vying for it, especially PSG. I don't even know if they've ever won the Champions League, especially in this new era, ever since they became a very, very rich club. Odds for this one, 3.52, PSG, draw 4.2, and Bayern Munich, best odds 2.09. Fascinating game here. Just from the naked eye, considering both of the teams' forms, PSG only really just scraped through in the quarterfinals to get to the semis. Obviously a more dominating performance to get into the final, but 2.09. We talked about this for Bayern Munich last time when they were playing Chelsea. Just from my naked eye, 2.09 for Bayern, that's pretty nice, I would think. George, what do you think? What are you looking at stats-wise here, mate?
Sort of looking through it. I was very disappointed with Leipzig last round. Just wanted to say that one. similar to Pep, overthought it, didn't play to their strengths. But so yeah, obviously PSG made it through on that one. But it's going to be a great final, seeing the likes of Neymar and Mbappe obviously going up against the Titans of Bayern, as it were. But yeah, Bayern have scored, obviously both these teams have made it to the final, so you're going to see it. But by some margin, Bayern have obviously scored the most goals in the Champions League with 42. With PSG have scored just to 25, so the averages are obviously very different. I think that can kind of obviously be, you can read too much into that, you know, with Bayern scoring 8 against Barcelona. But yeah, so no, looking at again sort of goals markets and card markets, over 2.5 has landed in 28 of the last 33 PSG Champions League matches, and in all of Bayern's last 6 games as well, with Bayern scoring at least 3 in 8 out of 9 Champions League games. Only 2 out of 5 of the previous finals saw both teams get 2+ cards each, though. So, and with Bayern being, you know, they don't commit many fouls because they see more of the ball. Teams don't usually get close to them to be able to make these fouls. But obviously, with PSG having the likes of Neymar and Mbappe, some of the most foul players in the whole competition, with these cards, I mean, it's difficult to tell with this one, but I don't see Bayern losing their heads or anything like that. It's been a while since they've been in a final, but they're just that kind of team. They're so used to winning. They're so used to winning domestically. Obviously, they got themselves to the final. I just worry about PSG's kind of, form before. They've never been to a final. Could they potentially lose their heads a bit, purely through the excitement? As Thiago Silva's last game as well, he's quite an emotional character at centre half, and he's going to have a lot to do on the game on that day. So, I'd be looking potentially at PSG most booking points when the markets come out. I just think for them it's a brand new occasion. They've got a few emotional players in there. And Bayern don't commit many fouls at all. Really. They just don't. They've seen the teams who made it to the knockout stages, they've seen the least cards out of anyone. Just 9 across the whole competition, in fact, if you include the group stages. Compared to PSG, who I think have got just over about 24 they've got. 25, sorry, my mistake. So it's a considerable amount more cards that PSG have seen compared to Bayern Munich. But as well as that, what was going through here? So, looking at it, in terms of goals, I'd fancy there to be goals again in this one, personally. But with cards, I don't think Bayern are going to pick up many. So my bet on this one, I think, would definitely be PSG to pick up the most cards, depending on what the market opens at. In terms of prices, I don't think you'll pick up much above evens. So if you can pick up anywhere near evens, that's a bet I'd definitely be willing to take. But potentially you could do a bet builder of sort of on the unders for Bayern cards as well. They're usually quite good. I know I did quite well on that last night for Bayern to receive. I think it was under 3 cards and over 2.5. That was fairly good odds. But yeah, so no, I'm looking forward to this one, but I don't see both teams picking up 2+ cards. So yeah, for me, my best bet would be PSG most booking points, and at a push, I'd combine that with over 2.5.
Okay, and I mean, with this game, it's kind of a question of not if they'll concede any goals, PSG. It's more so how many, because Bayern just like their form in front of goals is just outrageous.
They're relentless.
I don't know if you have a stat on how many. I think you said maybe they scored 40 goals or something this Champions League, or what
42.
Was it?
They've scored 42 goals and they're averaging 4.3 goals a game compared to PSG, who are averaging 2.5 a game.
It's just absolutely outrageous. So I mean, I guess maybe it's just a question of, can PSG score maybe 3 or more goals? Is that even possible? I mean, but again, looking through it, like I said, it's Thiago Silva's last game, and he is a renowned emotional player. This is his last game, Champions League final, the biggest game he's ever played for the club. He's going to want to go out on a high. So could we see him get into a bit of trouble? So again, obviously adding on to what I said, actually, I'd be looking to see I'd do it in play to see what sort of price he is, say, on the 60-minute mark to pick up a card. If he hasn't been carded before, then it'd be a miracle anyway. But purely for the value perspective, or even just the second half, I'll be waiting to see. Hopefully he doesn't pick one up in the first half. So obviously those odds get a bit higher, but yeah, he strikes me as one that, considering how busy he's going to be with the likes, or with Gnabry, Lewandowski, Müller, all of those lot. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if he didn't go into the referee's book, or at least get a stern talking to. So I think I'd be keeping an eye on that price in play as well. Yeah, awesome, mate. And what are you seeing in the markets at the moment, Harout?
I mean, the market just got released today for me. So, I mean, there hasn't been too much movement just yet. So I'm going to kind of be patient with this one. Both in the quarterfinal and in the semifinal for Bayern, there was movement on the totals, which I played on both the Barca match. On the Barca, they came in on the overs pretty hard, like right before the match, maybe a couple hours before. And then for the semifinal match last night, we were seeing money on the unders come in. So, I mean, it's been congruent with what the results have been. Small sample, obviously just 2 games, but I do like to be more patient with the Bayern Munich games, especially for the totals. I do find some spots later on. I'd keep an eye there just to see what kind of activity we're getting closer to the weekend.
What's the goal line for Bayern Munich right now to score? Because like we were talking about, they have scored a lot of goals in the Champions League.
Yeah, I haven't looked at them score, just their goal line. I'm seeing the entire game total at 3.5, and right now it's at 1.9 both sides. So I mean, it is kind of interesting because like it really depends. Like today they scored three goals, and but the under 3.5 cashed, and that's where the money was. So I don't know if that was more like market anticipation that Lyon just won't score any goals. But yeah, Barcelona is scoring. So, I mean, like I said, it's important to just keep an eye out to see what's going on with the totals. I highly doubt you're going to get any value pricing on Bayern's total goals, just because of the way they're scoring. So, I mean, it's kind of gonna be one of those things where I would just keep an eye on the market. It's been on as far as like the Bayern side to win. Right now, I'm seeing 2.02 at Pinnacle. And it's just been fluctuating up and down right now. There's really no drastic movement, and I don't know if there's a real big inefficiency there right now.
All right, cool guys. The other big football games that are on this weekend is actually the return of Ligue 1 in France. So that's I guess the first big major European league that's starting up again. I can't remember when they called off their season. It must have been maybe April or May. So there hasn't been a Ligue 1 game in a long time. I'm sorry for mocking the pronunciation of Ligue 1 to all of our French listeners. Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, George, I mean, there's obviously 9 games. We're not going to go through all of them, but is there one in game week 1 that's really taking your interest at the moment?
Yeah, there is actually, and it's a game that I'm going to be doing a preview for obviously the guys that we love betting. And it's Monaco against, they're at home to Reims. Obviously, as you said, the season was cancelled fairly early doors compared to other leagues, obviously. So I think people are going to be itching to get that one back. I quite like this game simply for the fact that I think Monaco are going to want to obviously put down a marker. Monaco can be fairly hit or miss when it comes to cards. One week they can get 3 or 4, and the next not get any. But obviously, I know at home they tend to be sort of fairly feisty. They do pick up more cards away, but at home, like I said, they can be very different. Reims obviously picked up. Whenever they play away to teams, obviously the opposition tend to concede a fair few free kicks. I mean, I think Reims are going to be busy today. I'm not sure who the refs are yet because I haven't seen them be released. So obviously I'll be waiting on that market. But as an example, Monaco picked up more red cards than anyone last season by some distance. I think the nearest to them was Nice with perhaps 5, but Monaco picked up 8 red cards. So they're very they like committing tactical fouls. They've got a few players in there that can commit some dirty challenges. So I do fancy there to be a fair few cards this one, but again, I want to see who the referee is because it's such an important statistic because you can get some very lenient refs in the French league. You see it time and time again. One week is some of the dirtiest sides will pick up a hatful of cards, and the next week can commit the same number of fouls but not receive any. So who the ref is obviously vitally important. But yeah, so looking at this one, early doors, it's hard to say without knowing who the ref is. But like I said, I'll be doing a write-up on this one because this is one of my favourite games of the weekend. But for now, until all of the kind of variables are known, I don't think I could make a fair assessment yet.
Okay, and that game is on Sunday for those looking to bet into that one. Just looking at that game alone, or maybe you want to look at the League One as a whole, Harout, is there any big pushes in any of these games?
No, and because they haven't played in such a really long time, I can't really anticipate anything here because I haven't seen any previous line histories that have been recent. They haven't played, the season got canceled, so I'm just going to keep a close eye here and see what the market's saying. But as of right now, it's really stale, so I can't really provide much insight on that one.
Would you say this is kind of like your most opportunistic time to make bets yourself, Harout, just because it's the start of a brand new season? There's not much not much information around in terms of previous form, so you can't really approach these kind of games with a load of stats, if you get what I mean. Like, you can't really go off them too much. So would you say with these games, like a round one, game week one, that it's actually really beneficial to just basically just put all your bets on numbers and what the markets are doing?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is something that I can't. It's so brilliant to do because that's where the biggest inefficiencies are in the season. I feel like the WNBA, which is the Women's National Basketball Association, just they started their season about a month ago, and it's a perfect example. Really soft opening lines, like teams that should be favored by like 10 points were being listed as 3-point underdogs on the opener. So I mean, when you consider the fact that the market is huge, it's a global market, somebody out there knows something. And when we use the wisdom of the crowds and we put all those the people's information and their knowledge together, we're able to come out with a good consensus that will make the market. So I think you're able to see a lot more movement in weeks 1, weeks 2, because there are a lot more inefficiencies that need to be corrected.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, mate. Just shows the benefit of reading numbers over, I guess, stats for the preliminary, or not the preliminary, but the first few rounds of a season where there's not as much information. What we might do, fellas, because the recording's running out, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with looking at the UFC fight between Frankie Edgar and Pedro Munhoz. All right, we're back. Let's talk about the UFC, fellas, especially you, Harout, considering you are a big UFC bettor. The only real, it's a pretty poor card coming up on, what'll be Saturday night for people in the US. The only real big fight is the main event, Frankie Edgar versus Pedro Munhoz. Edgar on a 2-fight losing streak to Chan Sung Jung and Max Holloway. Lost to decision against Holloway, but was actually quite a quick first round knockout to Chan Sung Jung. And this is his first fight at bantamweight. And Munoz, on the other hand, coming off a loss to Sterling, who's been very impressive lately. But he beat Garbrandt the fight before that, which was kind of a crazy finish where they just traded fists to see who would get knocked out first. So I don't know how much you want to read into that win either, because it was kind of a crazy finish. It wasn't much skill involved at all. But the odds on this one, 3.12 for Frankie and 1.41 for Edgar. Harout, what's the market doing at the moment, mate?
Well, the market opened up for Pedro around like 1.48. The thing that I like about the UFC market a lot is I treat it a lot differently than I do betting other sports such as, NBA or soccer, because a lot of the sharp movement does happen early. Like, that's the one thing that I like about UFC is if you're going to bet and you want to take advantage of like the bigger inefficiencies, like looking at the markets when they're first released is like super valuable, because you can pick up some really good spots. Like, for example, last week I had Europa for like 1.5. She ended up closing at like 1.33. And that would not be possible unless I bet early. So one thing that I like about this spot here is when we see early movement on UFC or any MMA in general, the trend tends to keep going that way. And seeing this type of movement for Pedro early makes me feel confident based on my past experiences that this is a solid value bet that will close in my favor. If 1.41 looks like 1.41, 1.42 looks like the best available in the market, and there is support there on him, I would probably buy in on that price because Pinnacle's already trending below is about to trend below 1.4.
And
so I'm seeing, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to ask if that's the same for all kind of fights. So, I mean, the big thing against that would be like a fight like Stipe and Cormier, where it was kind of up and down all the time. Is that the same? Would you say for the majority of UFC fights?
Yeah, there are. It depends. It can move in, two different ways. You can see it like one-way pattern where the money's just coming in on one side and it keeps going that way, and then you'll see a game that has betting on both sides and you see more tighter resistance points. The one that has more tighter resistance points, that's more of like a trader's market. You want to be like RBing both sides until you build good positions. That's a little bit more of a complicated topic, but there are times where you're not going to really see like super sharp movement on one side, and the Stipe and Cormier fight is a perfect example of that. See, me personally on that fight, I couldn't really like slam one side really hard and say, okay, like this is a true value bet. But if I trade and I'm able to pick up on spots where, like, let's say Stipe, I'm getting 2.1 and I can get Cormier 2.02 on the other side, like I can bet both sides and create a pretty liquid position there. So, I mean, in those instances, you're going to have to look at the market and kind of see, is it more of like a resistance market, or am I just seeing one-way market action? And the Pedro is like one-way market action. You're really only seeing money there.
Okay, so you might be expecting to see Pedro's price, which is at 1.41 now. I can't remember whether that was Pinnacle or whether that's just the best price I could find, but you're expecting that price to go down maybe into your 1.35 kind of range.
Yeah, Pinnacle's already dropped below 1.4. So 1.416 is like the best available in the market right now. But I kind of missed the best numbers already because I wasn't really paying attention to UFC this week. It's just been hectic with basketball. But I would still play the 1.42 personally myself, just because I feel like it's the position that is more often than not going to close in my favor than betting the other side.
Okay, terrific insight, mate. And that kind of concludes everything that we wanted to go through this week, everyone. So we've gone through Champions League final, Europa League final, UFC, and also the return of Ligue 1. Best bets of the weekend, George. I just want to say, I'm sorry to any French listeners out there. They're probably highly offended by the way I'm pronouncing Ligue 1. But
you're practically fluent, if I'm honest.
Practically. Best bet of the weekend, George, out of everything that you've gone through today?
For me, without doubt, it's going to be kind of a bet builder double of in the Inter Milan against Sevilla game, Europa League final tomorrow night. It's going to be over 2.5 goals scored and each team to see 2 cards.
Cool.
That's going to be my bet.
And what about you, Harout? I know it's reasonably early for you, maybe not the Europa League game tomorrow night, but is there anything you're really liking the read of right now?
Yeah, I mean, just like George, you saw me emphasize in my analysis, I think that the way that money's come in on Inter Milan totals, and the fair bit of price change since the opener, I do like the overs. I'm eyeing that one, and I think for our viewers, that's pretty good to have double confirmation from both me and George here. I think that's something to look into, because I do see that price will become more expensive closer to Friday.
There we go. That's the big read this week, the big game between Sevilla and Inter. Terrific stuff, fellas. If you're looking to follow either Harout or George, you can find George at @CGeorgeGamble, and obviously his previews he's doing for We Love Betting every week. And you can find Harout on Twitter at @BetLikeHarout. As I always say, some of the best free content you can get out there. And I teased a little announcement before, or at least at the start of the podcast. We're actually releasing a US sports package, more so obviously aimed towards North American sports bettors. So how it'll work is that you can buy the subscription package at a much lower price point than the normal Trademate core. So I think it's $49 US. And then you can get some discounts if you subscribe this weekend, and it's all released on Friday. So I believe if you subscribe for a month this weekend, you can get a 30% discount and a 15% discount if you subscribe this weekend for a quarterly package, so 3 months. And just had a quick look at our big data tool and how we're performing on US sports. If you're betting from North America, you're limited to the amount of bookmakers that you can use. So if I just included those bookmakers and looked at how we're performing on the US sports, ice hockey, baseball, basketball, and American football, and our ROI is incredibly healthy. In the last 10,000 trades, it was something like 11.5% ROI. I can post that all up on our Twitter, but it seems like we have a very, very big edge on US sports at the moment. So I would highly, I think it's just a good way if you're a US sports bettor to get involved now. Come in at a lower price, don't have to pay too much for a subscription, and then later, when you're a bit more comfortable, start trading on the European football, which is where you're going to get way more trades in, which is kind of the aim of value betting with Trademate Sports. But yeah, exciting stuff for US sports bettors. We'll move on to the quiz answer, fellas. I reckon I'm going to finally get you guys this week. Which player holds the record for most assists in a Champions League season? James Milner, Iniesta, Toni Kroos, or Douglas Costa? Harout, mate, you can go first.
I'll just go with the first one. Like the first one.
Don't you know that I normally put the third one as the answer, mate?
Well, hopefully it's different this time.
Hopefully. George, mate, what do you reckon?
Well, for a fact, it doesn't matter who you said third, it wasn't going to be that one. It's too much of a joke now. Like, there's no way that you'd have put the actual answer as the third one again. There's no way. So I think you said Toni Kroos for the third one. So I'm ruling out Kroos straight away. And then you said the other ones, Costa, Iniesta, or Milner. I'm trying to think who's that big...
Yeah, Milner, that's the one. I like that one.
No, we don't like James Milner, Harout. We don't like James Milner. I just feel like, this is going to get me. But right, just to be different, let's make things interesting. I'm going to go with the man, the genius, Andre Iniesta.
Did you want to go with Milner?
I probably would have gone Milner just because it's so obscure, and I feel like knowing you, it'd have been something just a mad stat like that. But I want to make things interesting because if it's not Milner, it's got to be the absolute little genius that is Iniesta. So I'll go with that.
You should have stuck with the pro sports bettor's opinion. He's actually right this time.
The first one I've got wrong. It's the first one.
I couldn't believe that, It's crazy. And
that's a 25% chance at random, so I'm going to win one out of every 4 weeks. Just go with the first one until we get some basketball stuff going.
But you read into it, right, George? Because, I had to put some other options in there. And I thought, I've got to put someone in there that's... my Douglas Costa option was the one that I thought was maybe a bit obscure, hopefully throw you guys off a bit and lean towards Iniesta and Toni Kroos. But James Milner's just such a weird one that it's a little bit easier to pick, I guess, in a multiple choice scenario.
You should have put James Milner third and really caught us out.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, 1 week I'm going to get you blokes, 1 week.
Have you got the answer to my one from earlier on?
Oh yeah, what was it again?
Who was the last goalkeeper to keep a clean sheet against PSG in the Champions League?
Against PSG? Do
you want me to give you some options as well?
Yeah, give me some options.
Okay, so we'll go.
Yeah, I'll take the first one.
Oh my word. Okay, so going Manuel Neuer, Courtois, Joe Hart, or Edison?
Oh, it's Joe Hart. He's the obscure one, isn't he? And obviously Harout's gone for Manuel Neuer, the first option.
Just saying, there's two Manchester City ones in there. They've been our most prominent keepers, so could it be throwing you off?
If I was using my brain, I'd maybe say Thibaut Courtois. I feel like they got a clean sheet against them quite recently. But I'll just go with Joe Hart.
Okay, what are you going with, Harout?
First one.
Let's go with Manuel Neuer. It was Joe Hart. Joe Hart in 2016. He was the last keeper to keep a clean sheet against PSG in the Champions League.
There you go, mate. There you go.
He's got it.
Maybe you shouldn't be Quizmaster either, mate. You fell for the third place trap.
I did it, but I did it on purpose. I was thinking, he won't think I'm going for the third one.
All right, Harout, you're up next week, mate. We're no good.
Oh yeah, I got you guys. Don't worry.
All right, fellas, tremendous stuff. Thanks everyone for listening. Once again, make sure to do a quick rate and review of the podcast and subscribe to us. We'll be back next week, next Thursday. So exciting stuff. And for all you US sports bettors out there, or maybe even Canadians too, who are interested in betting US sports, make sure you get into that package this weekend and get yourself a nice little discount and get started. But fellas, tremendous stuff, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you for having me.
See you, fellas.